I never thought I'd fall in love in a place like this. But then again, I never thought I'd end up working in a maximum security prison either. Life has a funny way of taking you down roads you never saw coming, and mine led me straight to Reed Callahan, the warden's son, in the most unlikely place two people could ever meet. My name is Dylan, and I guess I should start by explaining how I ended up here. I was 24, fresh out of college with a degree in social work that turned out to be worth about as much as the paper it was printed on. The job market was brutal, and after 6 months of sending out resumes and getting nothing but automated rejection emails, I was desperate. When I saw the posting for a rehabilitation counselor at Westfield Correctional, I didn't hesitate. The pay was decent. The benefits were good. And honestly, I needed something, anything, to feel like my life was moving forward. I'll never forget my first day. The massive concrete walls, the endless chain-link fences topped with razor wire, the heavy steel doors that clanged shut behind you with this finality that made your stomach drop. Everything was grey. Grey walls, grey floors, grey uniforms. Even the sky seemed greyer somehow when you looked at it through those high windows. I remember thinking this was the most depressing place I'd ever seen, and I'd be counting down the days until I could find something better. That's when I met him. I was in the administration building, getting my badge and going through orientation, when this guy walked past the conference room. He had dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead, these intense green eyes. And he moved with this quiet confidence that immediately caught my attention. He was wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, carrying a stack of files, and he looked completely at ease, in a place that had me on edge. Our eyes met for just a second as he passed, and I felt this weird flutter in my chest that I immediately tried to ignore. My supervisor, a woman named Margaret with kind eyes and 20 years of experience, noticed me staring. She smiled knowingly. "That's Reed Callahan," she said. "The warden's son. He works in the education department, helps run the literacy program. Good kid. You'll probably work with him sometimes on rehabilitation plans." The warden's son. Of course. That explained the confidence. This was his world in a way it would never be mine. I tried not to think about him after that. I had a job to do, and it was harder than I'd expected. Working with inmates, trying to help them prepare for life after release. Listening to their stories, their regrets, their hopes. It took everything I had. Some days I'd drive home completely drained, questioning whether I was making any difference at all. But slowly, I started to find my rhythm. I started to care about these guys. Started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could help some of them turn their lives around. And I kept running into Reed. It started small. We'd pass each other in hallways, nod politely. Then we ended up in the same staff meetings, sitting across the table from each other. I'd catch myself watching him when he talked, noticing the way he'd lean forward when he was passionate about something, the way his hands moved when he explained his ideas for expanding the education programs. He was smart, really smart, and he genuinely cared about the work. You could hear it in his voice. The first time we actually talked, really talked, was about 3 months into my time there. I was in the staff break room, completely frustrated because one of my guys had just been denied parole for the 3rd time, and I knew he'd been working so hard to turn things around. I was standing there staring at the coffee maker, not even really seeing it, just trying to process my disappointment when Reed walked in. "Rough day?" he asked, and his voice was gentle, understanding. I turned to look at him, and something about the genuine concern in his eyes just broke through my professional walls. "Marcus got denied again," I said. "He's been sober for 18 months, completed every program we offer, and they still said no." Reed leaned against the counter, and I noticed for the first time that he had these small freckles across his nose. I know Marcus, he said. He's in my advanced literacy class. He's writing poetry now. Really good poetry. About his daughter, mostly. About the man he wants to be when he gets out. That's what kills me, I said, and I could hear the emotion in my own voice. He's ready. He's actually ready. And they can't see it. The system isn't built to see it, Reed said quietly. It's built to punish, not to recognize transformation. That's why we do what we do. We see it. We document it. We keep fighting for them. He paused, then added, Don't let it break you, Dylan. The work matters even when the outcomes don't go the way we want. He knew my name. I felt that flutter again, stronger this time. After that, we started talking more. We'd find each other in the break room, compare notes on shared clients, vent about the bureaucracy and the budget cuts and the policies that made no sense. Reed had this way of making everything seem a little less heavy. He'd crack these dry, witty jokes that would catch me off guard and make me laugh when I'd thought I'd forgotten how. And slowly, without me really noticing it happening, he became the best part of my workday. I started looking forward to seeing him. I'd take my lunch break at the same time he did, hoping we'd overlap. I'd volunteer for committees I knew he was on. I told myself it was just because he was a good colleague, a friend, someone who understood the unique challenges of this work. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. The moment I couldn't deny it anymore came on a random Tuesday in October. We'd been working together on a grant proposal for a new vocational training program, staying late in one of the conference rooms, surrounded by statistics and budget projections. It was just the two of us in the building except for the night security staff. Reed was sitting across from me, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, completely focused on the laptop screen. The light from the monitor cast these shadows across his face, and I found myself just watching him, memorizing the curve of his jaw, the way he'd bite his lower lip when he was concentrating. He looked up suddenly and caught me staring. For a second, neither of us said anything. The air between us felt electric, charged with something I didn't have words for. Then he smiled, this soft, almost shy smile that I'd never seen before, and said, "What?" "Nothing," I said quickly, feeling my face heat up. "Just zoning out. It's late." "Yeah," he agreed, but he didn't look away. "We should probably call it a night," but neither of us moved. We just sat there, looking at each other across the cluttered table, and I swear I could feel my heart pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. Something was happening. Something was shifting. And it terrified me and thrilled me at the same time. Finally, Reed broke the silence. "Dylan," he said, and my name sounded different in his voice, softer, more intimate. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I managed. "Do you ever feel like you're pretending? Like you're playing a role at work? Being who everyone expects you to be? And you're just waiting for the moment you can drop the act and be yourself?" The question caught me completely off guard. "Yeah," I said honestly. "Yeah, I do." He nodded slowly. "Me too. Being the warden's son, there's this pressure to be perfect, to never show weakness, to always have it together. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating under the weight of expectations." I'd never heard him talk like this. So open, so vulnerable. "You don't have to pretend with me," I said, and I meant it with everything in me. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I like spending time with you. You make me feel like I can just be Reed. Not the warden's son, not the guy who has to have all the answers. Just me." My throat felt tight. "You make me feel that way too." We stayed there for another hour, not really working anymore, just talking. He told me about growing up with a father who was married to his job, about the loneliness of being the perfect son, about his dreams of maybe running his own rehabilitation center someday. I told him about my own struggles, about feeling lost after college, about my fear that I wasn't good enough at this work that mattered so much. And with every word, I felt myself falling deeper into something I wasn't sure I was ready for. When we finally packed up to leave, we walked out to the parking lot together. It was one of those crisp fall nights, stars bright overhead, and our breath made little clouds in the cold air. We reached my car first, and I turned to say goodnight. Reed was standing close, closer than colleagues usually stand, and in the dim light from the parking lot lamps, his eyes looked almost black. "Thanks for tonight," he said, "for listening, for understanding." "Any time," I said, and I meant it. He hesitated, like he wanted to say something else, then seemed to think better of it. "Good night, Dylan." "Good night, Reed." I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at me, the things he'd said, the feeling of connection that seemed to pulse between us. And for the first time, I let myself acknowledge what I'd been trying to ignore for months. I had feelings for Reed. Real, deep, complicated feelings. And I had no idea what to do about it. The next few weeks were torture. Every interaction with Reed felt loaded with unspoken things. We'd brush past each other in hallways, and I'd feel electricity shoot through me. We'd be in meetings, and I'd catch him looking at me, and when our eyes met, he'd smile in this way that made my stomach flip. I started having trouble sleeping, lying awake at night, replaying our conversations, analyzing every word, every gesture, trying to figure out if he felt the same way, or if I was just projecting my own feelings onto innocent friendships. The turning point came in late November. The prison was hosting a Thanksgiving event for the inmates, and staff were encouraged to volunteer. I signed up because I didn't have anywhere else to be. My family was across the country, and the thought of spending the holiday alone in my apartment was depressing. Reed was there too, helping serve food, and we ended up working side by side for hours. It was strange seeing this place that was usually so harsh and cold transformed into something almost warm. There was music playing, decorations on the walls, and for a few hours, you could almost forget where you were. Reed was in his element, talking to everyone, making jokes, treating the inmates like people instead of numbers. I watched him make an old man laugh, saw him listen patiently to a young guy's story about his kids, and I felt this overwhelming wave of affection for him that nearly knocked me over. After the event ended and we were cleaning up, Reed turned to me and said, "Hey, you have plans for the rest of the day?" "Not really," I admitted. I was just going to go home, heat up a frozen dinner, watch some TV. He made a face. "That's depressing. Come to my place. I'll cook something. Nothing fancy, but better than frozen food." I should have said no. I should have made up an excuse, protected myself, kept that professional distance, but I didn't want to. "Okay," I said. "Yeah, that sounds good." Reed's apartment was nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined something sterile and perfect, befitting the Warden's son. Instead, it was cozy and lived in, full of books and plants and mismatched furniture that somehow worked together. There were photos on the walls, art prints, a guitar in the corner. It felt like him, like the real him he'd talked about wanting to be. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, heading to the kitchen. "I'm not much of a cook, but I make a decent pasta." I sat on his couch, looking around, feeling nervous and excited and terrified all at once. This felt different from working late together. This was personal. This was his space, his life, and he'd invited me into it. We ate dinner sitting on his couch, plates balanced on our knees, and it was easy and comfortable and perfect. We talked about everything and nothing, laughing over stupid stories from work, debating the merits of different TV shows, sharing dreams and fears. And all the while, I was hyper-aware of how close we were sitting, how sometimes our knees would touch, how the air between us seemed to hum with possibility. After we finished eating, Reed put on some music, something soft and acoustic, and we just sat there in the dimming light. I could feel the tension building, the unspoken question hanging between us. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Reed," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is this? What are we doing?" He turned to look at me, and I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the same fear and hope I was feeling. "I don't know," he said honestly. "All I know is that I can't stop thinking about you. I look forward to seeing you every day. When I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I have in years. And I know this is complicated. I know there's my father and work and 100 reasons why this might be a terrible idea. But I can't pretend anymore that I don't feel what I feel." My heart was racing. "What do you feel?" He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and took my hand. His fingers intertwined with mine, warm and solid and real. "I'm falling for you, Dylan. I think I have been since the day I first saw you. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the weight of his hand in mine, the truth of his words settling over me like a blanket. "I'm falling for you too," I whispered. "I've been trying not to, but I can't help it." He smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "So what do we do now?" "I don't know," I said. "But I know I don't want to walk away from this. From you. Neither do I." We sat there for a long moment, just holding hands, letting the reality of what we'd admitted sink in. Then Reed leaned in slowly, his eyes searching mine for permission, and I closed the distance between us. Our first kiss was soft and tentative, a question and an answer all at once. But then he deepened it, his hand coming up to cup my face, and I felt like I was falling and flying at the same time. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. Reed rested his forehead against mine, and I could feel him smiling. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he murmured. "Me too," I admitted. We spent the rest of the evening curled up together on his couch, talking and kissing and just being close. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like this was where I was supposed to be. And for the first time in months, all the anxiety and uncertainty I'd been carrying melted away. This was right. We were right. Of course, reality came crashing back the next day at work. We couldn't exactly walk in holding hands or stealing kisses in the hallways. We had to be professional, careful, discreet. Reed's father was the warden, and while I didn't think he'd fire me for dating his son, it could create complications neither of us wanted to deal with. So we kept it quiet, sneaking moments together when we could, texting late into the night, finding excuses to work together on projects. It was hard sometimes, having to pretend at work that he was just a colleague when all I wanted was to reach out and touch him, to let everyone know that this incredible man had chosen me. But the secret also made everything feel more intense, more precious. Every stolen glance across a conference room, every accidental brush of hands, every private smile meant something. We fell into a rhythm over the next few months. I'd go to his place after work, or he'd come to mine. We'd cook dinner together, watch movies, talk for hours. On weekends, we'd drive out of town where no one knew us, and just be a normal couple, holding hands in public, going to restaurants, acting like we didn't have to hide. Those were my favorite times, when we could just be Dylan and Reed, two people falling in love, without all the complications. And I was definitely in love with him. It hit me one night in January when I was at his place and he was in the kitchen making hot chocolate. I was watching him from the couch, and he was singing along to some song on the radio, completely off-key. And he looked so happy and relaxed and beautiful that I felt this overwhelming surge of emotion. I loved him. I loved his kindness and his intelligence and his terrible singing voice. I loved the way he cared about his work, the way he made me laugh, the way he looked at me like I was the most important person in his world. I loved him. Simply and completely. He brought me my hot chocolate and sat down next to me, and I just said it. I love you. He froze, his eyes going wide. For a horrible second, I thought I'd made a mistake, said it too soon, scared him off. But then his face broke into this radiant smile, and he set down both our mugs and kissed me, breathless. I love you too, he said against my lips. God, Dylan, I love you so much. We spent that night wrapped around each other, whispering promises and plans for the future, and I'd never felt so happy, so complete. This was it. He was it. Everything I'd been searching for without even knowing I was looking. But of course, nothing good lasts forever without a challenge. In March, Reed's father started talking about retirement. He wanted Reed to consider applying for an administrative position, to follow in his footsteps. It would mean more responsibility, more visibility, and it would make our relationship even more complicated. Reed was torn. He loved the education work he was doing, but he also felt this obligation to his father, this pressure to live up to expectations. We fought about it one night, not because we were angry at each other, but because we were both scared and frustrated, and didn't know what the right answer was. I don't want you to give up your dreams for your father's expectations, I said. You've spent your whole life trying to be who he wants you to be. When do you get to be who you want to be? It's not that simple, Reed said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. This is my family, my legacy. I can't just walk away from that. I'm not asking you to walk away. I'm asking you to choose yourself for once, to choose what makes you happy. You make me happy, he said quietly. This, us, makes me happy. But I also feel this responsibility, and I don't know how to balance it all. We talked through it, and eventually Reed decided to have an honest conversation with his father. He told him about his passion for education reform, about his dreams of doing more direct work with inmates. And to both our surprise, his father listened. Really listened. He didn't pressure Reed to take the administrative job. Instead, he encouraged him to follow his passion, to make his own path. It felt like a turning point, like maybe we could have this, have each other, without sacrificing everything else. And then Reed did something that completely shocked me. He told his father about us. I didn't know he was going to do it. He just came over to my place one evening looking nervous and excited and said, I told my dad about you, about us. My heart stopped. You what? I couldn't keep hiding anymore, Reed said. I love you, and I want to be with you, really be with you, not just in secret. So I told him. I told him that I'm in love with you, that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and that I'm not giving you up. What did he say? I asked, terrified of the answer. Reed smiled. He said he'd noticed us months ago, that we weren't as subtle as we thought. And he said that all he's ever wanted is for me to be happy. If you make me happy, then he supports us. I couldn't believe it. I actually started crying, these tears of relief and joy, and Reed pulled me into his arms and held me while I fell apart. We don't have to hide anymore, he whispered. We can just be us. And we were. We went public with our relationship, and while there was some gossip and a few raised eyebrows, most people were supportive. We kept things professional at work, but we didn't have to pretend anymore. I could hold his hand in the parking lot, kiss him goodbye before heading to my car, tell people about my boyfriend without having to be vague about details. It's been 2 years now, since that first Thanksgiving at Reed's apartment. We moved in together 6 months ago, to a little house just outside town, with a yard and a porch and room for the life we're building together. Reed ended up starting a non-profit focused on post-release support, and I joined him. We work together every day, fighting for the people everyone else has given up on. And it's hard and exhausting, and the most meaningful thing I've ever done. I never thought I'd fall in love in a prison, of all places. I never thought someone like Reed, the Warden's son, someone who seemed so far out of my league, would choose me. But he did. And every day I choose him right back. We choose each other. Choose this life. Choose love even when it's complicated and scary and uncertain. Because that's what love is, I've learned. It's choosing someone every single day. It's being vulnerable enough to let them see all of you, the good and the bad. It's building something together, brick by brick, moment by moment. It's finding someone who makes you want to be better, who sees the best in you even when you can't see it yourself. Reed is my person, my partner, my home. And I wouldn't change a single thing about how we found each other, even if it was in the most unlikely place imaginable. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming.